I've never found myself wishing for like a school shooting to happen in a teenage movie so bad in my life, but at this point in time, if someone had come out there on the ice with an AK-47 and just mowed down everyone except our little protagonist Maria, I would have been fine with it.
Same here.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for listening to Amigas, the movie reviews podcast where we ask that fundamental question that so many others leave out. Do I give a shit?
Do I really do?
Do I really give a shit? Do I give a shit about this story? Do I give a shit about these people? Do I give a shit about what's happening to them? And today we're going to talk to you about a movie that we give a shit about, that we think you should give a shit about. Today we're going to talk to you about the 2018 film Look Away.
And I believe this was a Canadian film, made in Canada. So
A Canadian film.
Yep.
A Canadian film. It's made in Canada. Look Away starts out, we have this girl named Maria. Maria is an only child in a very prominent, rich family, and it's not a very happy family. We see her going to this rich school, and she is, has these asshole rich parents where the mom doesn't work and her dad works, and her dad's this plastic surgeon, and we see her getting up and going about her day, and she goes to school with her little uniform on, and the first thing we see is that she is not very popular at her school. Despite being very attractive and being a very nice girl, she just doesn't really fit in with her peers at school. We see her getting bullied on the school bus, and then we see she has this friend named Lily who is her best friend, and Lily is so much more confident than Maria is. She just has all of the things that Maria wishes she was, like the confidence to go and talk to boys, to stand up to the bullies, to go over and talk to the guy that she likes. All of these things that, Maria wishes that she has. So we find out that, her dad's this asshole plastic surgeon.
Perfectionist.
This perfectionist that just wants to make women into this kind of like ideal of what he thinks they should be. And her mom is
depressed.
Her mom's depressed. Her mom is one of those people that's got everything in life, has everything handed to her, and it's just not everything that she really wants. So we see Maria going out in the day. She goes out get on the school bus, and she's standing outside. And the first thing she does when she gets outside of her very nice, very rich, posh house and away from her parents, the first thing she does is light up a cigarette, which is, of course, not something she wants her parents to see. And then she goes and she gets on the school bus, and she looks like, that scene in Forrest Gump where he's like walking around and trying to find somewhere to sit on the bus, and everyone's like, you can't sit here, you can't sit here, all those like fake assholes trying to do a southern accent, and they really don't. But we see that same thing. It's kind of a recreation of that scene, and, she ends up at the back of the bus, sitting by herself, and, she goes to school, and she links up with her good friend Lily, and we kind of see what kind of person Lily is, and how she has everything that Maria probably wishes she'd had, but doesn't.
The popular cheerleader type.
And she's a blonde girl and has all this just stuff going for her. After school, she goes home and she's having this first little dinner with her family, and we see that it's not just the pressure she has at school to fit in with these other assholes in their little uniforms and their little lives. She has the same kind of pressure at home to be perfect, and her parents are asking her things like, hey, are you going to go to prom? And she's like, no, Mom, I'm not going to go to prom. I don't want to go to prom. I don't want to do this. It's not for me. It's not for me, Mom. I just told you I'm not going to prom, Mom. Why don't you just drop it, Mom? Jesus. And she tries to bring up this kid that she knew at science camp or whatever, and, Maria's like,
George.
George, Curious George or some shit like that. And she's like, look, just let it go, dude. Like, I'm not trying to go to this thing. I'm not trying to do this thing. I'm not going. I don't want to. I'm not doing it.
Even her dad steps in, and you think he's a good guy when he steps in and tries to say...
you think so. You think so at first, but he's not so much. If we get any impression that he's a good guy in the beginning, this gets ruined for us very shortly afterwards. So, Anyway, she's going on about her day. After dinner, she's just doing her normal routine, and she's in the bathroom doing her thing, and all of a sudden she sees the mirror that she's sitting next to doing a thing, which is the first indication that you shouldn't watch this with your family. We're not going to go into what she's doing, but she's doing a thing, and she's next to the mirror, and all of a sudden, as she's having this moment with herself, so to speak, her reflection looks over at her in a way that she wasn't looking at herself, and it freaks her out. Like, can you imagine having somebody in the mirror that looks just like you, that all of a sudden is independent of you, looking over at you? Because that's what happens to Maria.
It's like the Supernatural episode with Bloody Mary.
What happens in that episode?
Some of the reflections start acting independent of themselves.
Bloody Mary is one of those things like Slender Man or some shit like that,
Yeah,
where you
yeah.
say something in the mirror 3 times and then all of a sudden it, like starts to come back at you or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
So the next morning, after having seen, her independent reflection, like talking to herself in the mirror, Maria goes downstairs and she's having breakfast with her family, and we see asshole dad be all like, "Oh my God, honey, you don't look very good. I can't believe you're going to go to school like that.
You need
like,
to go put on makeup.
You need to go put on makeup. You just don't look very good at all. You just look terrible." And
You're going to go to school like this? No, you don't need to go to school like this.
yeah, that's what he tells her. So, she goes back up and she puts her makeup on. And of course, her mom is all fretting and stuff about like, oh, but her omelet's going to get cold. Like, she shouldn't go back up and put makeup on now because her breakfast is going to get cold. And dad's all like, she's not going to eat that omelet anyway because she's anorexic and she's not going to do that shit. So just go and put your makeup on, honey, and stop embarrassing us at school. So she goes upstairs, she puts on makeup, and she goes back outside to stand in front of the house and wait for the school bus to pull up again. And as the school bus pulls up, we see this same asshole that was intimidating her on the bus the day before standing at the door of the bus waiting for her to get on so he can start some more of that shit.
Well, luckily, doesn't her best friend show up in a car?
Oh, her best friend doesn't just show up in her car. Her best friend pulls up in a brand new Porsche. Before she can get on the school bus, she sees this car, she honks the horn, she hops in, and she is looking around and she's like, hey, nice car. This is a pretty nice car. And her bitchy friend is like, nice. Oh my God, what do you mean it's nice? Like, nice is like something that you say to like a guy that you like don't want to go out with. This is like a turbocharged 911 with this special paint. Like, this is so much better than nice. And she's just kind of like, okay, bitch, I was just getting ready to get on the bus. Like, get over yourself. Like, fucking goddamn, can we go?
Yeah, it's not a pretty scene. You think, as a best friend, this is not one of those times.
I definitely got the impression in this scene that Lily was her friend because she just wanted somebody to tell her how great she was. Lily seems like the kind of bitch that picks friends based on someone that's beneath her and can look up to her and suck up to her and tell her like how awesome she is all the time. That's definitely the person that I got the impression of her being from this scene. So, they get in the car, they go off down the road, and they go to some other dude's house. What's this guy's name?
Shane
or
Sheen,
Sylvan or some shit like that. They go pick up some other fucktard that goes to the school who wears the little, uniforms and ties and all this bullshit. And of course we find out that Maria's not really the best friend because she doesn't get to ride in the best friend seat. She has to hop off and jump in the back of the Porsche, which has a very small back, but she has to move out of the way for this fucktard that Lily's into to get in the car and to go on and do their little thing at school and show up in whatever kind of style and class they were hoping to show up in. I guess Lily just wanted to show up like she had a posse or some shit in her new car.
Probably.
So the next thing we see is, they go to school and she's walking around, and of course this same asshole is just bullying her at school. The same dude that didn't get to bully her. Mark, this motherfucker Mark, is just trying to intimidate her at school and give her all this shit and all this stuff. And so she just kind of suffers through it and just goes with it and whatever. So she goes home after that, and she's sitting at home, and she decides to like go and just have a bath and just let it all wash off or whatever. And as she's sitting there in the bath, which is a very explicit scene that, again, if you didn't catch us the first time when we said this is kind of not something you want to watch in mixed company, there's a lot of nudity in this bathing scene. It's not one of those discreet conservative bathing scenes.
No, it's not.
It's definitely not, but she's having one of these moments with herself while she's there bathing, and she's just in the bath trying to let it all wash off, all this bullshit she's had to go through at school that day. And while she's sitting there, she just kind of like slumps back and she goes under the water, and as soon as she goes under the water, she starts having this crazy flashback moment that goes all the way back to her birth. She sees the surgeon in the operating room while she's being born, and just all this stuff is going on. And clearly she's thinking to herself, why am I having this experience? Why am I seeing,
experiencing this
why
particular
am I having
moment.
this particular moment? Why am I having this flashback? Like, what the fuck? But she gets up, she's out of the bath, and then all of a sudden she starts to hear
Her name being called.
But not just her name being called. She starts to hear her name being called in her own voice. Like, can you imagine somebody that had your exact voice, like, calling your name out to you from down the hall?
No, because that would just be weird.
That would just be weird, right?
This is the horror movie scenario where you hear your name being called, you turn the other way, and you start walking out of the house.
It's bad enough to hear your name being called by anybody, but let alone being called by you in your own voice. You're wondering what the fuck. But basically, Maria's a white chick, and she doesn't do the sensible things that anybody else except white people would do in a horror movie scenario. She does the exact opposite thing that, sensible people would do, and she just goes with it. She just follows the voice. She just goes on down the hall and in the direction of this crazy voice that sounds like her calling her own name. And guess where she ends up? Back in the bathroom, where it's the evil reflection in the mirror that doesn't want to just look at her this time. This time, the evil reflection in the mirror wants to talk.
Yeah, it does talk. It tells her that
Hey, guess what? I'm you.
I'm you. I can take away your pain, all this stuff.
I can make everything so much
better.
You just need to be like me. I know all about you. I've always been here. And she's like, oh my God, I don't know what the fuck's going on right now. And she's like, you do know what the fuck's going on right now, because I've always been here. I've been here for every moment of your life. I've seen everything going on. I saw that asshole trying to fuck with you on the school bus. I was there for that, and I was there for everything between now and when you were like 3 years old. And I've been here and I've seen it, and I can fix this shit if only you'll let me. And so she's like, oh my God, like, what are you here to tell me? And she's like, I'm here to tell you that not just you are beautiful, but we are beautiful, because I'm you. Mm-hmm. I'm you. She's like, okay, so what do I call you? Like, what's your name? And she goes, my name is Aram, which is basically Maria spelled backwards.
Yeah, which is kind of weird, but at the same time, it's a mirror reflection at this point, so...
And at this point in the movie, I started to understand why this movie started out in the very beginning with a ultrasound, like a movie of an ultrasound. And in this movie of an ultrasound, we see these two babies in the womb, in utero, and they start like boxing and fighting and just going at it with each other, and then eventually one takes over the other, and then there's only one, right?
Something like that. The story's a little bit different, but usually that's what happens, yeah.
At least that's what we see happening.
Yeah, that's what we see happening.
That's the context that this movie gives us, so that when we flash back and she's having the weird, images in the bath, and she...
About her birth and everything.
About her birth and everything like that, we know...
Oh, and the weird picture she finds, too, at one point.
Oh, yeah, she finds a picture of an ultrasound at some point, and she's like, what the fuck's going on? And, there's a lot of people that could analyze how this movie starts out a lot better than we could, and I guess fucking hit them up, check them out. You can definitely always jump on that other movie reviewers thing and see how they're doing shit. But today you chose Amigas, so you're going to hear the Amigas take on this film.
After that conversation with herself, essentially.
After that conversation with herself, she goes downstairs and she's sitting there with her parents, and she tells them, hey, guess what? I've changed my mind. I think I am going to go to winter prom. And her mom is all like, oh my God, honey, that's amazing. That's like so great. Like, what's his name? Like, who's the guy that you're going to go to prom with? And she's like, I don't know yet who it is. I just know that I'm going to prom. And she's like, that's my girl. That's what I want to hear.
Even the dad's happy at this point.
Even the dad's happy because, this depressed girl that has obviously just reacted to this depressing life that he's created for her has finally decided, oh, hey, I'm going to give a shit. I'm going to try. I'm going to do all this formal bullshit that everyone, is expected to care about. And I'm going to go and appear and be at this thing that not only makes me look good because I care about me all of a sudden, I'm going to do this thing that makes you look good. And that's what her dad really and truly cares about.
Again, it's the perfectionist in
It's the
him.
perfectionist in him. Like, he is really and truly portrayed as the ultimate shallow piece of shit that has lots of money for being a shallow piece of shit, and none of that money he might have made his pockets deeper, but it hasn't made him deep whatsoever. It just made him more of a shallow piece of shit. So the next thing we see is that Mariah goes to school, and she starts interacting with this guy at school that Lily has a thing for, and she sees them interacting, and Lily very clearly senses that, hey, there's a thing going on there. I think this guy that I like might actually like my so-called quote-unquote good friend, Maria.
And this is the Sheen or Shane character.
Yeah, Sheen or Shane, Shiva, or whatever the fuck his name is. So the next thing that happens is Maria has lunch with her dad, and as they're coming out of lunch and as they're coming out of a very awkward movie, they run into this awful son of a bitch, that Mark, that's been bullying her. And instead of like bullying her in front of her dad because he senses that she's there, he's all like, "Oh, hey, Dr. So-and-so, I hear that you're a doctor. Did you know that I'm thinking of going into pre-med? I was wondering if I could come by and pick your brain sometime because, you know, I'm trying to be a doctor and you're a doctor and I want to be a doctor and that would just be good and great and fine and great." To his credit, even the dad kind of looks around at the situation and is like, wow, this is not going well for my daughter. This dude's a piece of shit. This is not going well.
Not at all.
At all, not well at all. And so they go to dinner, and then they have dinner, and then they hop in the car. And as they're going back home from this dinner event, he basically says to her, "Hey, guess what, honey? I hear that your birthday is coming up, and I've got this really special present for you. And I was wondering if I could give you that really special present that I have for you early. Like, couldn't you just come by in the office like sometime tomorrow, and I'll tell you about what this really special present I have for you is? Ha ha ha, can't you do that? Could you do that? Ha ha, could you do that? Huh?" And she's like, Sure, Dad. Okay, Dad. Like, all right, fine, whatever, Dad. And they go home. Well, as she's at home, she goes into her bathroom again, which is where, you know, so much of the magic takes place for this movie. And she sees her Aram mirror self start talking to her again. And she starts telling him, like, look, you know your dad is an asshole. And you know that the way he's going
to try and fix you.
He's going to try and fix you. Because even though this girl is, like, fucking perfect to look at, her asshole plastic surgeon dad thinks something's wrong with her, and that's what the mirror self is telling her, is that he's like he is. He just sees you as an imperfection. He sees you as a failure, and he wants to go make you perfect and not a failure, and he's just going to try to go and modify you just like he's modified all kinds of bitches to pay for this expensive house that we live in, and that stupid ass school that you go to, and all those meds that your mom takes to, like, you know, be normal and all that shit. So next day she's gone to school and she's doing her thing, and all of a sudden she's out with her friend Lily, who has decided to do that evil bitch that's taken on a lesser chick friend thing and try to improve her. And we find out that Lily is trying to take her out and teach her how to ice skate
for the winter prom, I believe.
For the winter prom, because this is one of those amazing asshole places that is such an uppity fucker school that they have their winter prom on ice, like the fucking Nutcracker or some shit, and they all skate around and dance and do all that bullshit. So she and Lily are out there at some abandoned pond or some skating place or some shit like that, and they're out there and she's teaching her how to skate, but she doesn't really teach her how to skate. She just kind of gets her out there on the ice and lets her know how much better of a skater she is than Maria, and kind of lets her kind of fall down and not do very well. And we get the impression that this whole event was just a scam for Lily to get her out there and intimidate her about how much more of a boss ass bitch she was than Maria.
Oh yeah, because at one point Lily goes, "He's mine." You know that, right?
Oh yeah, she tells her that while they're out there ice skating. She's like, you know, yeah, he's mine, right? Like, she doesn't say who she's talking about. She just does that bitch thing where she's like, okay, she can read between the lines. She can figure it out because, you know, let's face it, women usually aren't like friends with each other like that. They're usually just in competition for shit.
And if they are true friends, they had to grow up side by side, like really close to each other type thing.
And that's one of the things her mirror self tells her about this person is it does not fucking matter that you grew up side by side with this person and knew her all this time. That's something that Maria was thinking all this time, is that, hey, I can trust this person. I've known her a long time. We grew up together, so that loyalty must actually exist. It must actually run deep. And of course, everything that happens on the ice rink this day really just leads her to doubt that. So,
or in this case, put it out of her mind, because don't forget, the mirror image also tells her, hey, since I've been with you this whole entire time, I know what she did when she was in kindergarten, when she made you wear this pink floofy dress that made you look like an idiot.
That's exactly the next thing that we see, is after this ice skating scene going horribly wrong, she goes home and she's talking to the evil self in the mirror again, and she tells her just that. She's like, I saw when she did this to you when you guys were young, and I saw when she did that, and I remember when she left you in the sandbox, and basically tries to tell her, hey, look, that bitch is not your friend. And Maria's like, but yes, she is my friend. She's trying to do all this stuff.
You don't know what you're talking about.
She's like, yeah, you don't know what you're talking about. This chick is not your friend. She doesn't fucking like you. Won't you just let me take over and I'll show you really and truly what's up, what's going on, and how this could really be, how this could really go. Just let me drive, bro. Just let me drive. And she almost lets her. At this point in time, she almost lets her, and she would have done herself a huge fucking favor if she had let her evil self drive at this point. But right as she's about to do the little, mirror, mirror on the wall magic ritual thing to let that happen, she stops one little step short, and it doesn't happen.
Because of her mother, she knocks on the bathroom door.
Oh, yeah, her mom fucks it up. Her mom, knocks on the door and is like, who are you talking to in there, and what are you doing? And she just starts laughing, because it's kind of hard to explain that, hey, I was talking to myself in the mirror, and she was telling me that, Lily's a bitch, and that you suck, and that Dad's a piece of shit. She can't really tell her all that, so she's just kind of laughing, and her mom's like, what are you doing? Are you smoking pot? Are you huffing glue? Or what are you doing? What do you think is so goddamn funny in here? And she starts ripping all her shit apart and looking for fucking marijuana or quaaludes or paint thinner or whatever the fuck she thinks she's gonna find, and she doesn't find anything, so just fucks off back to bed. And then she has this whole scene with the dad where the mom is like, but she's doing shit and I don't know what it is, but shit's going on. And Dad's like, well, honey, she's all fucked up, we have talked about this before and we know where she gets it from, so here, just take your pills and shut the fuck up and go to bed. And that's what happens there. So next thing we see is Maria is on her way to the winter formal. She shows up at school, and there's this big stupid ass rich person thing going on where they've got a disco ball over the hockey rink, and all these teenagers are out there skating around and doing all this stupid teenager rich people ritualistic bullshit. And she doesn't want to do any of this shit. She's just there because she's expected to be there, and she's trying to make her life less miserable from all of the people that are constantly expecting all this shit from her. So she goes out, and we see her skates go on the ice, and she's kind of wobbly, but she's like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to put myself out there, and I'm going to try this. And she goes out, she's skating around a little bit, and it doesn't take her very long to...
Well, she gets picked up by the Sheen guy before Lily cuts in. And when Lily cuts in is when she falls down.
Oh, yeah. So she's out there on the ice, and this guy that likes her, that, Lily has her eye on, is all like, hey, oh my God, you're out here, you're skating, just skate with me for just a minute. And Lily looks across the ice and is like, oh no, you don't, bitch, that's my man, you're not gonna do that shit, bitch. And she comes over and just kind of pushes up on him and cuts in. And it's not very long after having that soul-crushing experience that Maria falls down on the ice. And she hasn't been down on the ice but for a couple of seconds, and everyone starts laughing at her. They start pointing at her, and you would think at this point that somebody would have sympathy on her and skate over her and help her up, but that doesn't happen.
No, we really don't. And we think we get it at one point. We think that the guy Mark actually tries to do that.
Oh, yeah, we think Mark's had a change of heart, because we see this son of a bitch skating over to her oh, he's finally going to stop being a dick and come off it and be good. As he's skating over to her, we think, oh, good, Mark's going to just have a character arc and change his mind and help her up and all this shit, but... that's not what he does. No. Mark just takes his being an asshole self to a whole nother level and grabs her and flings her around on the ice while she's still like down on the ice. Like, she's not standing up. She's got like her knees and her legs and all her shit on this cold ass fucking dance floor, and he's just grabbing her and pulling her around and swinging her around and just humiliating the fucking shit out of her. Like, she's crying and she's screaming, please make it stop.
We even have people in the background trying to get someone to stop, but they themselves don't step in.
Nobody does shit. Like, you know,
even her best friend, Lily.
Even her best friend Lily doesn't do a damn thing because, again, like the evil mirror self was right. This is not her real friend. Like, and as you're watching this horrible thing happen, like, I've never found myself wishing for like a school shooting to happen in a teenage movie so bad in my life. But at this point in time, if someone had come out there on the ice with an AK-47 and just mowed down everyone except our little protagonist Maria, I would have been fine with it.
Same here.
Like, I really would have been fine with it. They could have just had that happen, ended the movie there, and let it be done at like 40 minutes in and called it a short film, and I'd have been like, A+, like 5 stars. That was very avant-garde. That was fantastic. I really liked it. So I would have even made up a bunch of bullshit on this podcast about how it's, you know, it's a great commentary on our society and all that shit, or some shit like that. So anyway, she goes home and she's talking to the mirror self, the evil mirror self.
After crying
her eyes out, she ends up back at home talking to the evil mirror self again. And the evil mirror self is basically like, didn't I tell you? Didn't I tell you? Didn't I tell you that you should have trusted me and let me take over and let me drive so that I was out there dealing with these motherfuckers instead of you? And she's like, yeah, kind of. Like, are you sure that you could handle all this stuff? And the evil mirror self is like, yeah, I'm positive. Don't you want to find out? And she's like, yeah, okay, sure. I guess I've had as much as I can take of this bullshit. I'll give it a try. I'll let you drive. I'll let you do whatever. So they do this little, you know, hocus pocus, mirror on the wall type of shit. And they, you know, whoop-de-doo, they switch. And the evil mirror self takes over.
And of course, the first thing she does is what our protagonist tries to not do, which is smoke in front of her parents. She lights one up in her bedroom.
Yeah, lights one up right in her bedroom. Like, I don't give a fuck if they come in and smell cigarette smoke in here. That's going to be just fine. That's going to be no issues. I have the confidence to smoke in my own room in my multi-million-dollar house. So the next thing we see happening is Maria goes downstairs for breakfast the next morning, and she has totally changed around. Like, her mom's trying to ask her questions about how did the prom go, and who did you dance with, and what went on, and how was all that stuff, and she's like, oh, Mom, I just don't really want to talk about it, but I am so hungry, Mom. You remember how I used to never eat my omelets and stuff? Like, I'm starving now, Mom. Like, is there anything we have for food? And she's like, yeah, we have, like, bagels. And she's like, oh, my God, I love bagels. And she just eats a bunch of bagels, and everything is great. And then we see her on her way to school, and she's outside of the school building, and she's walking into school, and then the movie cues us in with this dramatic change in music and tempo in the background. We hear this shit's about to go down music, and shit does go down.
After she gets into school, of course, her bullies decide to try to torment her again.
Oh yeah, as soon as she walks in, the same asshole that just swung her around on the ice is there, and he's looking at her, and he's thinking he's gonna just intimidate her by looking at her and all this stuff.
Queen.
Hey, Ice Queen, how are you doing and stuff? And instead of being intimidated this time, she just kind of looks at him like, oh, you motherfucker, you're gonna get it this time. And she walks right up to him, and she just calls him out, because the whole time up until now, it's been very plain and very obvious to see that this son of a bitch, Mark, is really one of those guys that, like, when he's a kid on the playground and has a girl that he likes, he runs up and pulls her pigtails and pushes her down because he's stupid emotionally and just thinks that's the best way to deal with all that shit. And this is not
jock brain. What I call jock brain.
Jock brain, okay? And this is not lost on the evil mirror version of Maria that has taken over and is driving at this point in time, and she takes full advantage of this information. She walks right up to him, grabs him by the nuts, literally, and then whispers in his ear. It's a little more explicit than this, but it whispers in his ear, hey, motherfucker, I know that the whole reason that you're like this is because you like me. You like me to the point that it's uncomfortable, Mark. And I'm not going to be putting up with your shit anymore, Mark. And then she licks his ear and lets his nuts go, and she walks off from him. And he's just kind of standing there like, holy shit, and what just happened?
Of course, his bros are like, she just
grabbed your nuts, dude. Like, what the fuck? And he's like punching his friends, like, shut up, man. Like, don't talk about that, man. Just shut up.
Completely embarrassed.
Right, like he got humiliated just like he humiliated her, and he deserved it, you know? So she walks on from him. She just steps off from that situation, and then this guy that Lily has been into, that she's been trying to keep Maria away from, comes up to her and is like, oh my god, dude, what did you just say to him? Like, you just left him speechless. And she just kind of does that eye flick thing where she looks him up and down and is like, oh, you know, I just told him. And then she leans in and whispers in his ear and tells Shane or Shiva or whatever his name is exactly what she just told old boy Mark over there. And he's like, oh my god. So the next thing we see is she runs into her good friend, Lily. She's like, oh my god, I'm so sorry that happened to you at prom, and that was so wrong, and
I tried to stop it.
And Maria, the evil mirror Maria, of course, at this point, is having absolutely none of that. She just kind of looks at her and is like, oh yeah, is that what you did? You tried to stop it? Really? Well, that's great. Thank you so much. And then she reaches out and does this like boss ass move where Maria reaches out and brushes, you know, Lily's hair behind her ear and is like, hey, by the way, aren't we still going to go and learn how to ice skate together? And she's like,
do you really want me to still teach you?
Like, we're not going to have this stupid, like, ice skating prom thing anymore. It's over. Like, why do you want to do that? And she just goes, self-improvement. I want to learn for self-improvement, and you better be there. So
They meet at the
little ice skating pond
around.
not too long after that. And as they're getting out there, you know, Maria pretends at this point to be all insecure about her skating. And she gets out there and she's like trying to do things. And she's like, okay, Lily, show me how you do this. And Lily shows her this little, like, you know, skating thing that she does.
Advanced skating
shit. And she's like, oh, really? Did you just do it like this? And then Maria, like, snaps into herself and she just does this thing that Lily thinks she has no ability to do whatsoever.
Or coordination
to do. She does it perfectly. She does it just absolutely perfectly. And she definitely intimidates Lily a little bit. And she starts trying to skate over to her. And Lily, realizing, hey, this person that I have been not a very good friend to and have been definitely manipulating all this time, seems to have a little bit more power than I thought she did. And now she's rushing at me in the middle of nowhere on an abandoned skating rink. She starts trying to skate away, but Maria is having none of that. She starts skating up on her faster. She starts running up on her. And she starts chasing her until all of a sudden Lily loses her balance. And then all of a sudden, thunk, there goes that head. There goes Lily's head right on the ice. And she's dead. Spoiler alert.
Oh, yeah.
Lily's dead. She's bleeding out on the ice. And Maria calls the cops and is like, oh my god, we just had this terrible skating accident. Can you just come out here and just help us? Because my friend just got hurt and I don't know how it happened. She was probably trying to show me a skating trick and it's just so sad. Can you please come out here? You know, and cops come out there and they look around and they're like, oh wow, isn't that something? How sad. Must have been a skating accident. And, you know, she just kind of crosses fake ass friend Lily off the list. And she starts moving forward on the list. So, you know, it takes a minute for this movie to get good and to, like, really build up to it. It kind of goes through a lot of really cringy lengths to make you hate these people that this teenage girl is going to be going after in her revenge quest. But it doesn't disappoint. It definitely makes you want these people to get it.
Oh, yeah.
I personally hated all of these people to start with, and so I didn't mind, but like they did a good job in this movie of really laying it on thick and showing me why I should want all of these people to get revenged upon. And we recommend it. If you
Oh, yeah.
are the kind of person that wants a movie that is not going to bore you and that is definitely going to build upon that character development within the story, check this one out. This one's a pretty good one. So, Danny, that leads me to our first question that we always ask about movies. What genre of movie is this?
Psychological thriller.
Psychological thriller / horror, right? Like
Yeah, it is, because evil mirror twin.
Evil mirror twin, like all. I mean, it's a pretty good premise for a horror movie because we basically have this girl that ate her twin when she was in utero, and instead of the stronger one surviving, the weaker one survived. And then she comes back to play a part in their life together. So you could definitely call this a psychological thriller / horror movie.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. Here's our main question that we ask starting on about every movie. Do you care about these people?
I cared about the main protagonist. I didn't care about anybody else.
Yeah, I cared about Maria, and I basically hated every single other person in this movie except for maybe that one dude that was kind of nice to her. And
the mom.
And the mom, like,
because the mom
she
is suffering from depression. I mean, not only that, but you can tell the father's clearly forcing the meds on her.
You can understand why she's suffering from depression, because she
Yeah.
has a really depressing life. She has all the money and all the resources and all the means in the world, and the people that have provided it to her, in this case her husband, are absolute assholes and just don't care about her a bit. She's just playing a role in their own little world, in their own little story. So yeah, I cared about Maria. I cared about Maria's mom. I kind of like that one dude that, was good and nice to Maria. And other than that, I hated everyone else in this story.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a good setup for this movie, because this movie is about bad things happening to bad people. So yeah, good setup. Very good. So that leads to our next question. Do I care about what's happening to these people? Did you care, Danny?
Well, seeing how each one went, because this is a revenge story.
Yeah, it definitely is.
So, seeing how each one would get their comeuppance kind of made me want to keep watching the movie.
Yeah, it definitely did. Like, I didn't care about these people as such, but I cared about their relationship to our main character in this story, and I cared about what might happen to them eventually, because you get the sense in the beginning of this movie that they're definitely setting these bad people up for bad things to happen to them.
Domino effect,
and it was kind of satisfying. Like, did I care about most of the people in this movie? No, but did I care about the main people in this movie? Yeah, I did, because I definitely wanted Maria to get hers. So another question we always ask is, does it capture my interest within the first 20 minutes?
Yeah, because we get to see her lifestyle, the character setup, and the story plot line start out.
Yeah,
because
it hooked me within the first 20 minutes. I think this movie the director or whatever went to great lengths to try to lure people that wouldn't normally have cared about this movie, that wouldn't have cared about this character. They tried to lure in audience members with nudity and sexuality and stuff like that. So, they went a little bit far, but I didn't let that put me off too much. I still, it hooked me within the first 20 minutes, even without all that bullshit.
Yeah.
So, did you think that the acting was good?
Well, yeah, because we have
one person playing two people.
Oh, yeah. It was one person playing two people.
Two very different people.
Yeah, you have the good and the evil, and you all of a sudden see halfway when they turn this all of a sudden confidence instead of being this meek little shy person.
And unlike movies where this happens, like Me, Myself, and Irene, this was not a funny movie. There was nothing funny about this movie.
Oh, no.
B, they have complete awareness of each other. There's a lot of movies where you have one body and two people living in that body and crazy stuff happens, but they don't really have any awareness of the other person that's driving the vehicle, so to speak. And in this case, you had complete awareness of what was going on with the other one. So yeah, the acting was very, very good in this movie. The acting was so good in this movie that it's kind of a shame that they pushed this actress to have to do so much like nudity and sexuality type of scenes just to sell the film. Like, It was a very typical teenage film in that sense, that they just kind of pushed that a lot to push the envelope.
Well, don't forget, high school is a trying time for anybody at any age, so...
Yeah, and high school also has this tendency of aspiring to something greater than whatever you are. Like, high school movies are notoriously unrealistic to what high school is actually like, but I felt like maybe this movie was kind of realistic to what rich, preppy, private school high schools are really like. The only thing that was unrealistic is they had a regular school bus picking them up to go to this thing, and man, at this school, the way that they portrayed it, you definitely would have had a bunch of like mommies and daddies pulling up in their Range Rovers and shit like that,
or having escorts
or limousines and shit like that. Yeah, definitely.
And if they did have a bus fare, they wouldn't be driving the ugly yellow buses.
Yeah, it wouldn't be the ugly yellow bus.
No, it would be like a private van or something like that.
So, did you like the style in which this movie was made?
Yeah, I did. I mean, it takes place during winter.
Were good. It takes place during winter. And it did a good job, because you have to have a certain amount of style for a psychological thriller / horror. I think that's probably the main thing that people that make those kinds of movies are going for. They definitely aren't always going for the plot, but they're going for how it's told visually. And the story relies very heavily on visual storytelling, and it was very cohesive. Like, I didn't have to run this back too much or check it out too much to know what was going on. It was still very clear.
Oh, yeah.
You know, what was happening and who was speaking and what was up.
Oh, yeah. And the camera angles was really, really good, too, like you were saying.
Yeah, the camera angles were really good in this movie, and I think the set choices were good. I liked how it was one central location, you know, the bathroom, where her evil self talked to her. Yeah,
all those conversations between the two take place instead of, like, just a random mirror in the hallway. Or
I mean, although we do see her checking for we see her checking for people in other places and like other mirrors. Like, we see her looking for the evil self in the little car visor mirror when she's riding around with her dad and she's not there. She only appears in the bathroom at the house. So that was neat. And they established a lot of good context in that sense. One of the other questions we always ask is, could I watch this movie with my family? No, hell no. Don't watch this movie with your family. It would be awkward. It would be weird. If you try to watch this movie with your family, it's going to be one that they are like, look, this is making me uncomfortable. Can we please turn it off? Either watch this by yourself or with some friend that you can watch awkward, cringy movies with, because you don't want to watch this with the people that you watch nice stuff with. It's just not in that nice stuff category.
Don't. You will regret it.
Is there a moral to this story?
Be yourself, I guess. I mean...
Be your best self, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, because don't forget, this is coming from the evil twin aspect, so it kind of is a weird type of thing.
I guess you could say that the moral to this story is, if you don't show any confidence in being your best self, if you don't live for yourself and take care of yourself and be your own best friend, I guess you could say the moral to the story is, if you live for other people, you run the risk of having your evil doppelganger take over and become a total savage to all these people that you're trying to impress.
That, or you actually lose a sense of yourself, really.
Yeah. If you live for other people, you'll ultimately end up losing your sense of your own self and who you're supposed to be. That's definitely... Yeah, we'll just go with that. I think you could call that the moral to this story. Did this movie give you context within the first 5 minutes?
Sort of.
Yeah, it took me a minute to know what was going on.
Yeah, in this movie. I would say for that it was the first at least 10 minutes up until where she found the, picture of the sonogram. Yeah,
definitely. I would definitely say this is one of those movies that I had to wonder what the hell's going on. And is this going to catch me? Is this going to keep me? I really wondered that for the first 20 minutes, but for the first 5 minutes, no. But by the first 20 minutes, I definitely was hooked in. I kind of hoped that it would get me at 5 minutes. I hoped that it would get me by 20 minutes. And by 20 minutes, it did. There's definitely a lot of movies that are really about nothing that, like, you're still wondering that at 5 minutes, and at 20 minutes, you're hoping it gets there, and at, like, an hour, you're sitting there mad at yourself because you just wasted your life on this piece of shit.
Oh, yeah, we had a few of those over the course.
We had a few of those, y'all. Like, definitely there's a lot of movies out there like that, but this is not one. This movie doesn't give you context in the first 5 minutes, but it gives it to you soon enough. Did this movie have an ending, or did it just quit?
Oh, it had an ending.
It had a hell of an ending.
Oh,
and
yeah.
not to give too much away, but we'll just say this. The people that it builds you up to hate the most definitely get the hardest revenge in the end. So if you like revenge movies, this is definitely one of those movies. And the ending, if you like revenge movies, will definitely not disappoint. So here's a question. Is it believable or not?
I mean...
Not really.
Not really.
No, this is kind of like one of those supernatural type of fantasy movies. This is not believable at all.
Some aspects can be justified to be real.
I mean, yeah, like I believe that there's chicks at rich private schools that pretend to be best friends with someone they secretly hate, but I don't really think that there's like mirrors out there where, you know, you're going to find out the truth about your birth and then that person that died is going to take over and get rid of all the evil people in your life. That's just a fantasy.
Yeah, that's just a fantasy, but the aspect of having someone else, a version of yourself living inside yourself, though, that is the aspect that can be portrayed in this as well, so...
Yeah, so maybe it sort of points to something real, but is it believable as
Generally,
such?
no.
Like, no, definitely
No.
not. Was there a good twist to this movie?
Oh, there were several.
Yeah, there really were. There were some good twists to this movie, and without giving too much away, I will say that one of the good twists to this movie is that just letting the evil self drive is not necessarily going to solve all of your problems or go as seamlessly as you might think. So
Yeah.
that's definitely part of it. Does this movie teach anything believable about life?
Sort of.
Private school sucks.
Yeah, that's one of them.
If your prom is like full of assholes ice skating, you might just want to not go.
Yeah, that was one of them. The other one is no one can be a perfectionist based off the dad. I mean...
Yeah, perfectionists are definitely bad people because perfectionists let perfect be the enemy of good. And that's definitely the case with her asshole perfectionist dad in this case, because we see this beautiful, beautiful girl.
These insecurities.
With all these insecurities, and ironically, all these insecurities are because of this asshole perfectionist father that she has, and because he's an asshole perfectionist piece of shit, he lets perfect be the enemy of good. He still wants to go in on this beautiful girl that you wouldn't change a thing about visually, and he wants to go and tweak this and carve this up and change that and change her ears and change her lips and all this shit. And it's like, bro, like you would never do that. Like you
Especially to your own daughter.
Especially to your own daughter.
Forget,
what an asshole.
This is his daughter. I mean, seriously.
Nothing is sacred to somebody that shallow. That's definitely a message in this movie. So here's one that we sometimes forget but definitely is relevant. Is this a movie that you would rent or buy or both?
Well, I'm a horror movie fan, so I would buy it just for the horror movie collection, but...
And being not a horror movie fan, I would say that I would rent this when I was looking for something that was grabbing and entertaining or whatever, just to throw in on a night when I wanted something to watch, something to be entertained by, but this isn't one that I would watch again and again, so...
Yeah, like I said, I would buy it just to have it for my collection.
So if you're a horror movie fan, you can definitely buy this one and have it in there for the collection to pull out and to talk about. And if you're not a horror movie fan, this is definitely a renter, so... Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Ask Me If I Give a Shit. We appreciate it. If you have any thoughts or questions or comments about it, hit us up at amigusmovies@gmail.com. That is am11gasmovies@gmail.com. Give us a review if you liked this, or if you didn't like this, just let us know what you thought, what was up. And tune in for us next week where we will be talking about an epic drama of a movie that has a lot going for it called Charm City Kings.
Bye, y'all.
Have a good one.